Good morning. It is 7:51 a.m. on Friday, October 23rd, 2020. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I didn't just get up. I've spent about half an hour doing very important business. This is 5 more minutes. So, by very important business, I of course mean laying on the floor of my living room playing with my dog. Um, Cuddling him, petting him, telling him what a good boy he is, tossing soft toys around the room so that he can go and get them and bring them back to me. You know, important business. He is a very good boy. I'm sure that comes as a surprise to no one, but I figured I would provide a crucial update that he is, has been, and will continue to be, I'm sure, a very good boy. Isn't that right, Rocket? He says yes. Um, I finally watched yesterday a scary movie that I have, or I should say, a scary movie as opposed to a movie which I found scary. Um, but it was a movie that has loomed large in my subconscious since I was a little kid, and I saw the cover of it on the shelf of the video store, and I've always wondered what it was about, and somehow just kind of never made it a point to actually just sit down and watch it. I watched the movie Phantasm, and it sure is a movie. Um, I've definitely been like I've always, I like horror movies and I like Halloween, but I don't always every year actually find myself drawn to watch lots of horror movies in the Halloween season. I mean, I do sometimes, but this year in particular, I've felt kind of drawn to it. I don't know, maybe it's just an element of like one of the things, this is always something hard to explain to people who don't enjoy horror movies, but there is just an element of catharsis in it when you've been feeling a lot of pent up stress and anxiety and or fear for the future. There's a suspense to that is very difficult to resolve when it concerns things that you don't have very much control over. So in a horror movie, the the I think you are able to kind of feel a piece of that suspense build up, but then release it one way or another, and I think that's part of what feels good about them. But I mean, I wasn't necessarily looking for that experience specifically so much as I was kind of idly looking for something to watch. And I had just recently watched Night of the Living Dead because we're going to talk about it on Watching 100 Movies. But one of the other movies that sort of came up on the like, if you liked that, you might like this, was Phantasm, which if you haven't seen like the poster artwork, you could certainly find it online. That's one thing that the internet's really good for. But it has this weird little sort of silver ball thing with like little spikes on it, and it has this, creepy looking old man doing one of these. And but like, what is it actually about though? Right? Is was always something that was never quite clear to me, because like always the copy on the back of the box, if I'd look at it, is sort of like, well, there's some weird stuff going on. I don't know what it is. That's kind of the gist of it. So now, having watched it, oh boy, it sure makes some choices. It's clearly very cheap, which, like a lot of the great sort of, small horror movies tend to be like that. I mean, that's one of the reasons that some of them make a lot of money, is that they very frequently don't cost a lot of money to make by comparison. But yeah, so the basic premise is that you've got these two brothers and their friend, I guess, who kind of start suspecting after one of their friends is killed that there's something weird going on at that mortuary, the one that is inexplicably in a gigantic plantation house. Um, but yeah, so I think part of the reason that the copy never really got into any more detail than that is because it's basically just a lot of weird stuff. So the silver ball thing is actually pretty great. It just flies around by itself, and then it sticks itself into your forehead and then drills through your face and spurts blood out. And so, which, I mean, I'm sure I'll spoil in general that that's the thing that it does, but it's great. It's like one of the highlights in the movie for sure. Um, the old guy though, like he's sort of the antagonist, but it's very like, I mean, it's very clear he's sort of just cast for his look because there's like barely a performance there. I don't want to like denigrate him necessarily, but there's an awful lot of shots of him just like speed walking in slow motion. Um, and yeah, I mean, he looks unusual, but I don't know. It's just it's a little weird. But I was unprepared for how bonkers that the story would actually get towards the end, which, if you don't want it to be spoiled, let me just go ahead and tell you, which is to say that part of what is happening is that the tall man is an alien or something that comes from a planet where I guess the gravity is higher, which doesn't make sense for why he's tall, unless, of course, I guess the intent is that, like, he comes from that planet, but now that he's on Earth, he's gotten tall. But apparently, what they're doing is taking corpses and then turning them and reanimating them into these weird little like mini me versions of themselves into like little people that can then be sort of weird slaves on this alien planet. Yeah. And then the reason, like I mentioned, their friend, I guess, who's a little weird, is first of all, it's a guy who, in a perfectly ordinary way, he's very, he's balding, like, the classic sort of horseshoe head. But the hair that he has just on the sides and back of his head is long and tied in a ponytail. And it's just so kind of striking as like a strange hairstyle. And he drives an ice cream truck, I guess. And his relationship to the two brothers is a little unclear. Like I guess he's the older brother's friend, I guess, but it's just like, I don't know. They don't act like longtime friends or have any sort of indication of their history other than that they hang out, I guess. So I don't know, it's weird. It's a weird movie. It sure is a movie. It has a couple of good moments in it. It has some really bonkers ideas. It has a couple of scenes where the main character, this younger brother, has to MacGyver his way out of various situations, and it's so obvious that the filmmakers have put like 100% more thought into those scenes than like the rest of the story, just because it's like this extremely loosey-goosey, haphazard, disconnected story that looks like it came together in editing from an entirely different story. But then it'll occasionally have these scenes where it's like, okay, well, the kid takes this shotgun shell and a thumbtack and a hammer and then some tape, and he rigs it up so that the shotgun shell is on the end of the hammer. Then he's going to go over and use that to swing it against the lock of the door that he needs to get out of, and it blows out the lock, and it's just kind of like you just get the sense that he was just sitting around imagining things like that. Or, playing with a shotgun shell and saying, well, what if you did this? Mm-hmm. Anyway. So I guess I liked it. I'll leave it there, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.